Welcome to the Choices Report Explained, episode number 3, focused on goals and geometry. So, the Choices Report lists various possible goals for transit, from the economic goals to the environmental goals, the social goals, the health goals, the personal liberty goals, and those goals are expressed in different ways depending on how you design your transit network. One way to design your transit network is a coverage network. So in this scenario, you are spreading your service out across the entire region, which means none of these bus lines run at a very high frequency because your service is so spread out. But even in places that have low density, you have some transit service. The other way to design your network is a ridership network, where you provide the best possible service where you have the most amount of people. Now in this network, since you're providing really good frequent service, you will attract a lot of riders, especially since you're providing that service where most of them happen to be. These two goals are mutually exclusive. Every network needs to decide how much of coverage and how much of ridership to provide. However, these also have a relationship to the goals that we discussed on the left. So for example, the environmental goals are generally achieved within a ridership network because environmental efficiency depends on a lot of people riding the bus. You can read about these goals and how they relate to these different two networks on page 15 of the Choices Report. Now, the other thing to note is that there are many factors that control transit ridership that are out of the control of transit. So density is one of them. And when you have scenarios where a lot of people and jobs are within walking distance of transit, a lot more people will be able to take transit because that's a larger market compared to when you have things that are spread out, less people are within that walking radius of transit and less people will be able to take it. Linearity is another one where you can draw a nice straight line between your destinations. You will have a much more useful transit service that more people will use because your destinations are all on a straight line. Compared to in a non-linear transit scenario, when you're starting from here and if your final destination is here to the right, you have to take a lot of diversions in order to get there. It takes you a lot more time and is much less useful for more people. Proximity is another one. So when you have your jobs and your housing closer together, transit has way more potential to be faster and cheaper. However, when you have your jobs and your housing much further apart, transit is forced to go through these long stretches where it's not picking up and dropping off many people, which means a higher cost per passenger. Walkability is the last one where you have a good walkable radius around you, which means starting from your transit stop, you can go in many directions and access places very easily on foot. Transit can be more successful, whereas compared to when you have a street network that leaves you holes and gaps and makes it difficult for you to get to your final destination, transit does have a harder time. Also, it bears saying that if your streets aren't safe to cross, transit has a much harder time succeeding. So that's goals and geometry. You can find more information at www.betterbus.miami and see you next